A pivot table is an interactive worksheet table, and it's used to quickly analyze and summarize large amounts of data. Now, how much data do I want to be able to summarize with my data range here? When I go ahead and insert that pivot table, to find out, I can just hover over the bottom border of the selected cell, double click really fast, takes me to the end. There you go. We have 109 rows, but of the 109, the first row is the header row, contains labels for each column, so the rest would be records, 108 records. Let me go ahead and scroll back up. And with this pivot table, I can specify which part of the source data I want to interact with. So of all the fields here, I can just say, I just want to focus on the company, the product, and the total. So in other words, I could say, I want the total sales for the company for each specific product. And I don't have to see any of the other fields. So to go ahead and insert this pivot table, go ahead and select a cell within your data range, or if you converted your data range into a table, well, go ahead and select the cell within the table, then come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Tables group, and there you go, click on Pivot Table. It opens up and it says, okay, select a table or a range, and by default it's selecting it for me because I built my database correctly. There's no design flaws, and if you want to learn more about that, then you can watch my training video on database design flaws. If you need to select your range, go ahead and click on the collapsible dialog box button, click and drag to select it, hit enter to pop it back open, or you can type it in and type in, if it begins in A1, A1 colon through whatever the end cell is, mine's H109. And then where do you want to dump this pivot table into? The default's a new worksheet. You can do an existing worksheet, choose the worksheet. It could even be the same here that we have our database upon, and then choose the location, maybe over to the right hand side of it. I'm going to stick with the defaults and click Okie dokie, and there you go, there's the pivot table. That's the Frankenstein that we're going to build by choosing those fields from our field list over here in the task pane. Now, where are these fields coming from? Again, we inserted the pivot table on a new worksheet, and the database is on sheet 1, and the fields are coming from here. Company, salesperson, order ID, again back here, company, salesperson, order ID. So just go ahead and check one to add it. When you check it, it adds in one of the 4 fields down below, and you can also see it over here in the pivot table. Now, what are these 4 fields? Well, you have the report filter. If you want to do some filtering, add it there. Excel's going to add it to where it thinks it ought to go, but there are some patterns you can look to when it comes to checking your fields up here that Excel's going to base it upon. For labels, you've got your rows and columns, and you can rearrange these if you want, but when Excel sees something that it thinks it should be a row label, well, it adds it there. And then you've got your values, which is basically anything numerical. So in short, all the fields here usually contain text. Well, values will contain numerical values, so let's go ahead and select some more fields here by coming up and doing the ship date. Let's also do the product name and the quantity sold. And you can see down below where it put them. And for the row labels, it's in a hierarchical structure, so the first one is salesperson, they're up at the top, and then below that is the date, and then below that are the products that were sold on that date by that salesperson. And then you can see over there the quantity, again, it's a value, it's dealing with numbers numerically. And when we added it, it gave us the subtotals here, so the subtotal for Bob Appleman is 70, and then for the date, which he sold all these products on, there's 51. And then for that date 19, and then 19 plus 51 is 70. Now if you want to modify these fields in that, for example, maybe the sum of the quantity, you don't like the name of it, click on the drop down arrow here and go to Value Field Settings, brings up that window, or you can close out. You can also right click on the cell here in the pivot table and you get the same option. Value Field Settings brings up the same window. Then it says, what's the custom name? Is it sum of quantity or something that makes more sense, like total quantity sold? And then if you want to change it, instead of the total quantity sold, like the maximum or the highest sold for Bob Appleman, or the average, the count, you can change it there. You can also change the number format if you want to go to number here and set it up with more decimal places, or how your negative numbers, if you have any, if they're going to look, well, in parentheses or in the color red or a combo. In any case, let's click cancel. Let's go ahead and do max, okay? Click okie dokie and there you go. So for this date range of the 3 products, which one is the highest in sales? Well, it's this one, 24, and so there's the result for that date, 24, and out of that date and that date, 8 and 24, which one's the highest, the max? is 24, so overall Bob Appelman has sold no more than 24 at any one time or any one day. I'm going to go ahead and right click and let's go down to value field settings again and change that to sum. And it wants to go back to the sum of quantity, which, okay, let's update that to total quantity sold, hit enter. You can also do some sorting, like for example, you can do it at the lowest level. The products here, you can see the default is A to Z, F before S, and then T. So if we right click on any one of those cells there, go down to sort, and let's do it the other way, Z to A, it flips them for each of the dates here, the products on those dates. So now the T's, in this case, are at the top all the way up to the F's, the top end of the alphabet. Go ahead and undo that. Well, if you want to do it for the actual salesperson, there's Bob Appelman. I think Max Klinger's at the other end. Let's go ahead and right click on Bob and say, hey, let's sort you the other way, Z to A. There we go, there's Max. Let's go ahead and undo that. Let's see, we also get the grand total down below, which is 1,048. By the way, instead of scrolling all the way down, let me scroll all the way up. With Bob Appelman selected, I can come up here on the Analyze tab to the Active Field group, and I've got my Collapse field, and it quickly brings it up so I just see, well, the first in the hierarchical structure, the salesperson, and I can go ahead and expand him just to look at the results for Bob Appelman or Collapse, or I can come up here to expand that and even do it for the dates. Go ahead and select the date and Collapse, and it collapses all the dates so we don't see the details or the products sold on those dates. So there's your Collapse and Expand buttons, and let's go ahead and select Bob and Collapse again to refresh my mind. It's 1,048 total sales for all these employees. You can go ahead and expand everybody and also the dates. And what you can do is, if you want the percentage in sales for each person, just go ahead and right click on one of the numbers here in the total quantity sold and go down to show values as percent of grand total. I mean, you get other options here. Percent difference from, percent of row total. Well, I'm going to keep it simple. So of the total amount in sales, 1,048, Bob Appelman got 6.68% of it. Ooh, Britt Hume, he's moving up, 9.64. He's taking a chunk of the pie. Then we can go ahead and right click and say we don't want to calculate at all and remove that. Now, like I said, you can move these fields around to get a better feel of what you're looking at to see if this is where you really want it as far as the display options go. Maybe for the salesperson, which, by the way, for the row labels, salesperson, you can click on the drop down arrow and uncheck all and just look at Bob and click okie dokie, and then you can see Bob right there. Or if you want, let me undo that, or of course you can click on the drop down arrow and select all. Let me click cancel. You can also move the salesperson field from the rows up into the filters. So it's showing it for all the salespeople if that's something you want to see by all or by one, because it doesn't list the salespeople down below. So if I click on the drop down arrow, wait, I can't check them. Well, you can if you come down here and select multiple items, check that. Then you can go ahead and uncheck all, and then check a few boxes, click okie dokie. Now it doesn't tell you by looking at it if it's Danny DeVito who made the sale. You just have to come back up here where it shows you that multiple items are being filtered to click on the drop down arrow to remind yourself, okay, we're looking at Britt and Danny. And again, keep in mind, as we discussed in the table training video and also the auto filter training video, that when you see these little funnels, that means that you're not seeing all the records. So if you look at this and go, I guess that's it, no, because you can see the funnel there, something's being filtered. If you want to see them all, then click on any one of these arrows that contains a funnel next to it and go ahead and check all to restore it and click okie dokie, and we're back to where we started. That way we don't miss anything. Just keep an eye out for those drop down arrows to make sure that you're seeing all the records before you make any judgments there, if it's going to be based upon assuming that what you're seeing is everything that is being pulled from the database for these fields. And not only can you move them from one field to the next, but in this hierarchical structure, instead of the date on top, you can click and drag the product and move that on top. Looks a little bit more organized, doesn't it? Air mattress, and then all the dates we sold the air mattresses on, and campfire bag, and let's see, again, these row labels, when you click on the drop down arrow, are for the products, and you can see that when you select it up here in the active field group, there's product. which by the way, you can go ahead and rename it there if you want. Well, not this. By default, it's row label, but you can see what it's for is the product. If I come over here for total quantity sold, and I'm like, I don't like that, you can also rename it there. Delete total, just hit enter, and there's quantity sold. And then if you apply a lot of filters, like let's do it for the salespersons, let me uncheck all for, well, these three, click okie dokie. And then I come down here, and for the products, I say unselect all just for campfire bag, day cot, and double bag, and click okie dokie. I've got two filters going on. If your pivot table includes a lot more fields than what I have here, like for the values, you got quantity sold. I could also add price each, the total, and they would be added down in the values, so they'd be added as columns to the right-hand side. You can go ahead and check it, price each, because again, they're values. Let's go ahead and uncheck that. To go ahead and clear all this out by, clicking on the drop-down arrow, selecting all, clicking on the drop-down arrow, selecting all, for those many fields can be quite tedious, especially when you have the shortcut that I know of that's up here on the Analyze tab to the Actions group. Click on the drop-down arrow to clear and clear the filters, and it clears all of them. So we're back to where we started. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.